they have been carrying this for a long time. Longer than they planned to. Longer than the original intention behind the keeping of it, whatever that intention was, could have accounted for when this secret first took up residence inside them. And the weight of it accumulated across that time has finally reached a point where continuing to carry it is more costly than whatever consequence they have been trying to avoid by not telling you tonight, this week, in a window that is closer than you are currently prepared for. They are going to tell you. I almost did not record this one the way I am recording it because delivering a reading about a secret someone is about to reveal creates a specific responsibility that other readings do not carry in quite the same way. The responsibility of accuracy, of not building something up into a shape it cannot sustain when it actually arrives, of being honest about what I am seeing rather than what would land most satisfyingly if I let myself drift toward the version that plays best. What I am about to tell you is not the version that plays best. It is the version that is actually true. And I think you are someone who can hold the actual truth better than you can hold a comfortable approximation of it. So that is what I am giving you, all of it. Let me start with the person, because the secret is inseparable from who is keeping it and why. This is not a stranger. I want to establish that immediately because the energy is specific about proximity. This person has access to you. They exist inside your life in some meaningful way, through your daily world, through a shared history, through a connection that is close enough that they have had repeated opportunity to say what they are about to say and have repeatedly chosen not to. That repeated choosing of silence is the first thing worth examining. Because silence about something significant is never simply silence. It is a decision, made once and then made again. Each day of not saying the thing is another choice to continue not saying it. And the accumulation of those daily choices, stretched across however long this secret has been held, says something about this person's relationship to you that is worth understanding before the revelation itself arrives. They were afraid, not of you exactly, of the specific consequence that this secret produces when it enters the space between you, of how what they have been holding, once it becomes something, changes the architecture of the relationship, of whether the version of things that currently exists, the one that does not include this information, is something they can return to once the information has been given. They could not return to it. That is what they knew. That is what made each day of silence feel like the more survivable option. What changed is that the version of things that currently exists has also become unsustainable. I want to describe what I am seeing in the interior of this person right now, because the physical reality of carrying a significant secret for a long time has a texture that most people do not fully understand until they have experienced it themselves. It is exhausting. Not in the way that ordinary tiredness is exhausting, in a deeper, more erosive way, because maintaining a secret is active work. It requires constant tracking of what has been said and what has not been said. Constant navigation of conversations that approach the territory of the secret without fully entering it. Constant management of their own expressions and reactions in moments when what they know surfaces in their awareness while they are in your presence. Every time they have been with you, there has been a parallel conversation happening in them that you were not party to. A running internal monitoring of the distance between what they were saying and what they were not saying, between how they were presenting and what they were actually carrying. That dual track exhaustion has accumulated. And somewhere in the recent past, in a quiet moment that may have looked completely unremarkable from the outside, something tipped, the math changed. The specific calculation of what it costs to keep carrying this versus what it costs to finally put it down shifted in the direction of putting it down. And now they are preparing. And now they are preparing. I want to stay in the interior of this person a moment longer because there is something specific about how this secret has shaped the way they have been around you that I think you need to hear. Every conversation you have had with them has had a hidden layer. Think about that. Every exchange, every ordinary interaction, every moment of laughter or disagreement or comfortable silence, happening simultaneously alongside a version of that same moment in which they are managing the distance between what they feel and what they are permitted to express, in which some part of their attention is always partly occupied with the task of not saying the thing they most want to say. What that means is that you have never fully had them present in any conversation you have shared, not because they did not want to be present, because full presence for them would have included what they were holding. And including what they were holding was not something the arrangement between you permitted. So they have been giving you the version of their presence that the arrangement allowed, which is a real version, which contains real warmth and real interest and real investment in you and in the connection, but which is incomplete in a way that you may have felt without being able to name precisely. There has always been something just slightly out of reach in how they engage with you. That unreachable thing is what they are about to put in your hands. And let me tell you what the secret actually is, because the title promises everything and I intend to deliver on that. What I am reading is not a single, clean, easy to categorize piece of information. It has layers. The surface layer is what they are going to say first. The deeper layer is what that saying reveals about everything that came before it. And the deepest layer, the one that arrives last when you have had time to sit with the full picture, is what it means for how you understand the entire history of your connection with this person. On the surface, what they have been holding is a feeling, specifically a feeling about you that they have been actively concealing from you because the feeling itself felt like too much to offer without knowing how it would be received. This is not a passing feeling, not the kind that develops in the presence of someone interesting and then fades as the circumstances change. The kind that arrived relatively early in your connection with this person and then did not leave despite everything that happened, despite the time that passed, despite whatever they did or told themselves in the attempt to manage it into something smaller. They have been in love with you, or something close enough to love that the distinction barely matters. Something that reorganized the way they experience the space you occupy in their interior life. Something that has made the thought of you arrive without invitation, persistently and with the specific force of something that has genuine roots rather than surface purchase. And they never told you. I want to speak to why they never told you. Because the reason is not what might be assumed from the outside, and understanding it changes the emotional texture of what you are about to receive. It was not indifference to the consequence for you. It was the opposite. It was a specific, almost paralyzed form of care that made the telling feel impossible. Because they understood, with whatever clarity they were operating from, that giving you this information without the certainty that it could be received and held and responded to in a way that did not damage what already existed between you was a risk they could not calculate in their favor. They were protecting something the version of things that allowed them to continue being close to you, the access, the conversations, the specific quality of presence they were permitted in your life under the existing arrangement. Because they knew, and this is the piece that will hit when you sit with it, that telling you would change the existing arrangement permanently, one way or another. Either in the direction of something more, which required you to feel something equivalent, or in the direction of something less, which was the consequence they could not bear to risk. So they chose neither. They chose stasis. They chose the ongoing discomfort of knowing something they could not say in exchange for the ongoing availability of being near you in whatever form was currently permitted. That exchange has been running for a long time, and it has finally reached its end. That exchange has been running for a long time, and it has finally reached its end. I want to describe what the ending of that exchange feels like from the inside of someone who has finally decided to stop making the calculation, because there is something almost physical about the moment a person stops weighing and simply chooses. The weighing is exhausting in its own right, the constant returning to the same question with the same variables and arriving at the same inconclusive answer. The specific mental and emotional fatigue of a decision that keeps presenting itself without resolution, that exhaustion is distinct from the exhaustion of carrying the secret itself. It layers on top of it, compounding the total weight until the whole system finally flags. What I see in this person right now is the specific quality of someone who has stopped the calculation. Not because the risks have disappeared, not because they have somehow arrived at certainty about how this is going to be received, but because the cost of one more day of not deciding has exceeded the cost of every possible outcome of deciding, even the worst one. That is the threshold they have crossed. And crossing it has produced something in their energy that is the closest thing to relief I have seen in them in a long time, even before they have said the thing, just from having finally decided to say it. I need to address something directly before we continue because I feel it in the energy of several of you and it deserves honest acknowledgement. Some of you already knew, not the specific words, not the formal admission, but the felt sense of it, the particular quality of attention this person has always brought to you that never quite matched the way they framed the relationship. The specific texture of their presence when they were around you, slightly charged in a way that did not fit neatly into whatever category they claimed to occupy in your life. The moments of something breaking through, briefly and then quickly managed back beneath the surface, that you noticed and then allowed them the grace of not naming out loud. You knew, and the knowing has been its own private thing to carry. Its own particular weight of sitting in a room with someone who is silently containing something enormous and choosing, for your own reasons, not to be the one to bring it forward. What is happening now is that you are both being released from the separate, private weights you have been carrying around this. The stasis is breaking. The version of things that required both of you to maintain a particular silence is ending. And what replaces it, whatever form the conversation takes and wherever it leads, is at least honest. At minimum, it is finally honest. Let me ask you something. When you think about this person specifically, and you set aside every other consideration, every practical complication, every question about timing and readiness and whether this is what you want or what you thought you wanted, and you simply let yourself feel what is actually present in you when they enter your awareness, what is there, not what should be there, not what would be convenient or appropriate or easily explainable. What is actually there when you drop the management of it and let it be whatever it is. That answer is the most important thing you will bring to the conversation that is coming. Not a strategy, not a prepared response, not the curated version of yourself that handles unexpected emotional situations with grace and appropriate measured reaction. Just what is actually there. Tell me in the comments if this person is someone whose name has been sitting in the back of your awareness as you have been listening to this. I want to know. I want to speak to what the actual conversation looks like when it happens, because I see it and the texture of it is specific. It does not begin directly. That is the first thing worth knowing. This is not someone who is going to walk into your presence and open immediately with the essential thing. They are going to approach it the way people approach things that terrify them, obliquely, through a conversation that starts somewhere adjacent to what they actually need to say, that moves gradually closer, that takes several exits off the main point before finally committing to no exit at all. Watch for the moment their energy changes. It is subtle. A slight shift in the quality of their attention from the social managed version to something more interior, more present, more pointed. A moment where the conversation they have been having begins to feel like a preamble for something rather than a destination in itself, where their eyes do something different, where the specific frequency of how they are looking at you carries more weight than what they are currently saying. That is the moment they are getting close to it. And when it comes, when they finally arrive at the edge of saying the actual thing, give them space to get there. Do not rescue them from the discomfort of the approach. Do not make it easier by pretending you do not notice what is happening. Let them make it to the other side of whatever it takes to say the true thing out loud, because the effort of getting there is itself meaningful. It is the evidence of how much the telling costs them, and therefore how much the thing being told actually means. I want to address the shock that the title of this reading promises, because the title promises it, and I want to be honest about what that shock is actually going to feel like. It is not going to be the sharp, destabilizing shock of something that comes entirely out of nowhere. You are not going to receive this information with no prior context, no felt sense that anything has been building, no intuition that something was being held back. The shock is going to be the different kind, the shock of confirmation, the specific, complex, almost disorienting experience of having something you had been half sensing, carrying as a quiet background awareness that you did not fully examine, suddenly become explicit, of the implicit becoming named, of the thing that existed in the space between you without ever having been acknowledged, finally being brought into the light where both of you can see it directly. That kind of shock has a particular quality. It is not purely surprising. It is partly relieving, partly destabilizing, partly the specific, strange sensation of the reality that was always there, finally being permitted to be visible. You will not know exactly what to do with it immediately. That is fine. You are allowed to take time. You are allowed to sit in the reality of what has just been named before you decide what you do next with the naming. You do not owe anyone an instant resolution of feelings this significant. Let me speak to what happens after, because this reading would be incomplete without it. Whatever you feel when this person finally says the thing they have been holding, whatever response rises in you, whatever clarity or confusion or relief or complication the revelation produces, there is a version of this story that goes forward from this moment into something genuine, and a version that closes a question that has been open for too long but does not open anything new. Both are valid outcomes. What determines which version plays out is not whether the feeling is equal on both sides. It is whether there is something real between you that is worth building on with this new information as its foundation. Whether what you have been to each other, once this secret is no longer sitting in the middle of it unacknowledged, has the substance to become something that neither of you would have been brave enough to reach for under the old arrangement. Only you can answer that. But I will say this. The fact that someone has been holding something this significant in the silence of their own interior for this long, maintaining access to you under conditions that required continuous suppression of what they actually felt, says something about the quality of their investment in being in your world. Not everyone would do that. Not everyone would pay that particular price just to remain adjacent to someone they could not fully claim. That price, paid willingly across the time it has been paid, is its own form of declaration, one that has been waiting to be spoken out loud. It is almost time